I want to address your attention to that ridge over there. That's the ridge in that direction. That's the ridge over there of the mount, the southern mountain of Jerusalem, the promenade. This is the most southern ridge of Jerusalem. And our journey starts there with Abram. Abram on his way to fight the kings goes all the way up to Dan. On his way back, right over here in this city, lived the king by the name of Melchizedek, where he meets him just outside of the valley where we exited in the city of David, greets him with bread and wine and blesses him. Blessed Abraham to the creator of the sky and the creator of the earth. Abraham goes back to Beersheba. In Genesis chapter 21, Abraham is commanded to leave Beersheba, to take his only son, his beloved son Isaac, and to walk and to offer him. He walks, and by the third he walks on the path we walk today, guys, on the Patriarch's path in Gush Etzion. From Beersheba, through Hebron, through Gush Etzion, which didn't exist back then, on the path of the Patriarch's Route 60. And the first ridge he comes up to is that ridge. He sees the place from a distance. He leaves his servants, leaves the donkeys, and he walks together with Isaac. As they walk together, they come to the summit of the mountain, exactly under the golden dome of the rock. Abraham binds Isaac on the altar. He's about to go all the way through to kill his only son. Suddenly he hears a voice. Avraham, Avraham, al tishlach yadcha el hanar ve'al ta'aslo me'uma. Abraham, Abraham, not hurt the boy, not touch him, as now I know that you're fully committed. Do not spare your only son from me. Immediately after this, Abraham finds a ram stuck with his antlers in one of the bushes, and he sacrifices the goat instead of his son, Isaac. That was 3,700 years ago, exactly on this very mountain, under the Golden Dome, the building that the Muslims built much later in 691. Fast forward 700 years, the Jews are in exile in Egypt, 210 years enslaved, 40 years in the desert, entering the land of Israel in 1406, establishing the tabernacle in Shiloh. We didn't visit that place, we'll go there next time, God willing. And from there, the Philistines destroy Shiloh, Ark of the Covenant falls captivity, and goes and travels in the Philistine towns. Saul doesn't fulfill God's word. He's chosen out. He dies in Mount Gilboa, also where we wore this trip. We saw Mount Gilboa where Saul died against the Philistines, right? David, that fought Saul, or Saul chased David in En-Gedi, where you were on Saturday. Samuel 24, in that cave in En-Gedi, is anointed by Samuel. He rules for the first 7.5 years in Hebron, and there 1006 BC. He arrives to Jerusalem, captures the city from the Jebusites, and establishes the fortress of Zion, the city of David. In the last chapter of the book of Samuel, there's a description, Samuel 2, how David comes and purchases. He pays 50 silver coins to King Arvanah, the Jebusite king. The very last passage, the last chapter of Samuel 2. He buys the land. Robert was asking me today, if a Jebusite nation will come today and claim that they're the indigenous people. Well, first of all, there's no Jebusite descendants, one. Two, there was a real estate deal here, documented in the Bible. We didn't just capture it illegally, we purchased it for 50 silver coins. David says the grounds. He dies in the age of 70. We talked about David and his character. He's traveling the city of David just south of the Temple Mount, where that curve of the road is down below it. That's where we talked about David and his palace, about Nathan the prophet, about Bathsheba. After David's death, Solomon inherits him. He rules in the same very palace we were at. In the year 966 BC, he establishes the first temple described in the book of Kings 1, with the great descriptions 480 years after the exodus of Egypt. We know to calculate the dates very quickly, because in 925 BC, we have a documented journey of Pharaoh Shishak from Egypt. That's an unrelated date from the Bible that we know, not related to the Bible. That was 925 BC. The Bible also talks about that specific journey, and that was in year 5 to King Rehoboam, his son. So 925 plus 5 is 930. Solomon ruled for 40 years. So add 930. 40 years is 970 is the year when Solomon sat on his throne. And it says in the book of Kings that Solomon established the first temple in his 4th year. So 970 minus 4 is 966. It's also said this was 480 years from the exodus of Egypt. Do the math. 966 plus 480, you get the date 1446. That's how I got to the date of the Exodus of Egypt, the $1 million question. What was the actual date? So you all have it on video. You can go back to that and find and match the dates. The first temple, guys, that Solomon establishes withstands a huge challenge when the Assyrian army, led by Sancheriv, comes and puts a siege on it. Isaiah is the prophet, Hezekiah is the king. Isaiah says he should not come to the city, should not build a ramp, should not enter the city. Now I would protect the city in the name of my name, in the name of David, my follower. And that night, an angel of God goes out and strikes the Assyrian camp. 185,000 are dead. We talked about the Assyrian siege in the city of David and witnessed the Hezekiah tunnels. The Hezekiah project described in the book of Chronicles. 120 years later, we have now Prophet Jeremiah and King Zedekiah, Yehoiachin. And Jeremiah tells the people, do not go against Babylonia. Do not trust Egypt. They throw him into the pit where he writes Lamentations. We read it today in the dungeons where Jesus was held the last night. Jeremiah is being pulled out of the pit by the very same people we found the seals in the city of David. Gedaliah, the son of Pashhur, in Jeremiah 37. Right, we found the actual seals with their names. And after that, both in the book of Jeremiah and the book of Kings, we have a description of the destruction of the first temple built by Solomon by the Babylonians. The Nebuchadnezzar, the head of the army of Nebuchadnezzar, in the year 586 BC, 9th of Av, the day of, same day repeats itself, 9th of Av, burns and destroys the first temple, burns and destroys the house of the king's palace, David's palace, all the way throughout Zedekiah's palace. And the Jews go out to exile. And Jeremiah gave a prophecy of 70 years of exile. After 70 years, they come back. Not everybody comes back. Zerubbabel, son of Shaltiel, in the book of Ezra 1, describes how he comes back, reestablishes the second temple. Guys, 70 years gap. There were people that in their lifetime, if you were a 10-year-old boy and you lived to be 80, 85, people that in their lifetime, they saw the first and second temple building standing.
Wow.
And Ezra said they were crying and weeping.
Yeah.
Right? As they were building the second temple, which is much more modest. They didn't have the means for the first temple. The one which was plated with gold, with 11 candelabras. Later on, they expanded it, fixed it up. Cyrus, in the year 538, gives a declaration allowing the Jews to come back. Ezra comes in the year 453 BC. Nehemiah, 444 BC. They make the revolution here, the education revolution. And that's the days of the second temple time period. During the Persian period, Persian Empire sinks. Alexander the Great takes over the Middle East. And the Greeks split between the Seleucids, Ptolemies, and the Macedonians. Famous story of Hanukkah, 198, Antiochus captures Jerusalem. At first, he's good with the Jews, but then Antiochus IV, Epiphanes, prohibits Jews of keeping the Sabbath, prohibits Jews of worshiping in the temple, and a revolt starts. We were this very day in a place where we witnessed, and we talked about one of the battles of the Maccabees, where Eleazar, the son of Matityahu, the brother of Judah, was killed when an elephant stepped on him. That was one of the 8 battles where the Maccabees, led by Judah the Maccabee, fought to purify the temple in Jerusalem, where they found the pure oil jar that lasted for 8 days. They take over the Hellenist Gentiles that took over the temple, and they purify the temple, and they establish an autonomy of 100 years of Jewish rule. In the year 63 BC, the Romans come to Israel. Pompey, there's an argument of 2 Hasmonean brothers, Aristobulus and Antigonus. They call in the Romans, and the Romans come by invitation. In the year 37 BC, Herod the Great is appointed by Rome to be the king of Judea. His father Antipater has good connections. And for 33 years, Herod's ruled the country. He builds Masada, which you visited. He builds Caesarea, where we visited. And he builds, above all, the Temple Mount over here. The greatest religious building built in ancient world. the size of 12 soccer fields. Herod dies in the year -4, the same very year that Jesus is born, in Bethlehem. The famous story in the New Testament of the massacre of the babies. That was in Bethlehem. Jesus is born in Bethlehem, goes back, his childhood is in Nazareth. He starts his activity in Galilee. We were in Capernaum, sailing on the Sea of Galilee, first miracles in Cana. Later on, healing the mother of Peter's mother-in-law, healing the person with the demons in Corsi, that's all in the north. Coming down from Galilee as we came through the Jordan Valley, being baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. That's only 30 miles east of where we are. Jesus had several visits in Jerusalem, either every pilgrimage, Passover, Tabernacle, and Pentecost. We know he was circumcised in the Temple Mount. We know he preached in the Temple Mount. We know his parents lost him in the Temple Mount when he was speaking with the rabbis. We know he flipped over the tables of the money changers near the Temple Mount, also a place we stood in. And today we cover the sequence of the events of the last visit of Jesus in Jerusalem. Just to cover that very quickly, the sequence of events for this to sit very well with you. We were up on Mount Zion. Mount Zion is all the way, take a look at that direction, all the way up there. You see the Dome of the Rock? Left of it is Mount Zion. Mount Zion is the upper room, the last upper room. From Mount Zion, Jesus walks down with his disciples, the very walk we did this afternoon, down crossing the river of Kidron, and right over there is the Garden of Gethsemane. Just down there, guys. Okay? That's where he's arrested in the middle of the night by the Romans with Judah Iscariot, giving him the famous kiss of betrayal. From there he's being sent over to Caiaphas the high priest. His house is over there in that valley, St. Peter and Gallicanta, where we visited just after the upper room. We were in the dungeons where Jesus was arrested. And from there he was brought on in front of Pilate, probably in the Anatolian fortress. Take a look. That's the Lion's Gate. Above it is the northern part of the Temple Mount. That was the Anatolian fortress, right over there. Pilate put him on trial, sentenced him to death by crucifixion. And from there Jesus went carrying the 300-pound cross, either north, outside the walls to the area of Garden Tomb, which is in that direction. Let's take a look at the laser, that direction up, okay? Outside the walls where we visited, we finished our day today. Or an alternative place which we'll talk about, whoever's going to be here tomorrow, is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is in the middle of the Christian Quarter, which is right about over there. Okay? This is the sequence of the event of Jesus. After he was crucified, it was Friday afternoon. Sunday morning, Mary comes to the tomb. The stone is rolled open. Only the linens are there. And the resurrection from the dead, the third day. After 50 days, the Pentecost, Jesus, after meeting people in Emmaus and meeting other people, reviving people from the dead, or the traditions, the 50th day, Jesus ascends up to heaven from this very place, from Mount of Olives, where we're standing. Where exactly on the Mount of Olives, we don't know, but along this ridge of Mount of Olives, he ascends up to heaven. This is the sequence of the event of Jesus and what we traveled throughout our journey here in the land of Israel. I want to just quickly review what happens in the next 2,000 years, in the next 3 minutes. In the year 70, the temple is destroyed. Jesus weeps for Jerusalem. He prophesies that the temple will be destroyed. Year 70, again, 9th of Av, the same very date. The temple is destroyed. In the summer of the year 70, we went through the actual drainage system in the city of David where the rebels hid 2,000 people. We went up and we saw the destruction of the Robinson's Arch, where the Romans destroyed in the year 70. We saw the coin the Roman printed, Judea Capta, Judea Divicta. They changed the name from Judea to Palestina. That's the source of the word Palestine. Not what that guy was saying on the Temple Mount. It's existing for thousands of years. It exists in the Bible. Well, it doesn't. The Romans changed the name of Jerusalem. They didn't want it to be called Jerusalem, mentioned 669 times in the Bible, to Ilia Capitolina, the name of Aelius Adrianus, the Caesar. And the Romans controlled Jerusalem. The Romans are pagans. They're worshipping idols. As a matter of fact, they built on the side of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, they built a pagan temple. they hunt and persecute the first early Christians and the Jews. But in the 4th century, everything changes. In 324, Helene, the mother of Constantine, the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire sinks. Byzantine Empire rises. Helene comes to the Middle East, to Jerusalem, to Israel, the Holy Land. And she identifies 4 places. She builds 4 churches. The Church of the Nativity you visited on Saturday, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, 300 years after Jesus was crucified, the Church up on Mount of Olives, the Church of Ascension, and the Church of the Annunciation in Nazareth. The Byzantine period goes for 300 years until 638, where the Muslims captured Jerusalem. The Muslims have different dynasties. In 691, we talked about this building being built, the Dome of the Rock built by Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. 15 years later, his son al-Walid builds a stone building of the Al-Aqsa Mosque instead of the wooden building built by Omar in 638. 747, a big earthquake in the land of Israel. Al-Aqsa Mosque collapsed. Dome of the Rock stayed untouched. Rebuilt. 1033, again, a second earthquake. We talked about it in our tour in the Temple Mount yesterday morning. Rebuilt. In 1099, July 15th, after a 5-week siege, the Crusaders come and breach Jerusalem. They breach from the north, bless you. They breach from the south. They massacred the Jewish and the Muslim population of the city. The Crusaders controlled Jerusalem for 88 years. Until in July 1187, Salah ad-Din, the Ayyubian leader, unites the Shiite and the Sunni world for the first time against the shared enemy, the Franks, the Crusaders, and defeats them in the famous battle of the Horns of Hittim, just above Tiberias. We saw the valley as we drove up to Galilee last week. And the Ayyubians and the Muslims take back over Israel, over the land of Palestine. We call it June Palestine. Ayyubians, the Mamluks, Baybars, the Sultan. And then in 1517, the Ottoman Empire comes here. The Ottoman Empire controlled the land of Israel for 400 years. Just to understand, guys, the Muslims controlled the land of Israel for 1400 years straight, minus the gap of 88 years when the Crusaders were here. How many days out of these 1400 years was Jerusalem the capital of the region? Not even one. How many times is Jerusalem mentioned in the Quran? Not even one. There's chapter 17 in the Quran. Blessed is he who brought his loyal follower from the holy mosque in Mecca, to the extreme mosque. The only reference, which is the vague interpretation that interprets Jerusalem, is Al-Aqsa. That's what they call it today, the farthest. And in the Hadith, the commentary of the Quran, Jerusalem is referred to as Bet el-Maqdas, which is the Arabic Hebrew word for Bet Hamikdash, which means the Jewish temple. Hamikdash. Bet Hamikdash, that's how we call our temple. Guys, 1917, the British come here. There's huge hope. They defeat the Ottoman Empire. The British divide, together with the French Middle East, the Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916, drawing straight lines, cutting through ethnic groups, geographical boundaries, and creating the foundations for the new Middle East as we know it today, and as it's falling apart today by ISIS. In 1920, the League of Nations decides, I'm going to send you the map to the WhatsApp, to allocate the land of Palestine, including what's known to be Jordan today, as a Jewish homeland. 1923, Winston Churchill cut 77% of it. We talked about it as well. Gives it to the Hashemite family of Jordan, creating a good ties with them. We're left with Palestine. The geographical name of this land is Palestine. What the Romans left us. 1917, a couple of years before that, the Balfour Declaration. And guys, 1939, the Second World War starts. No one cares about the Jews. There's no Jewish state yet. The Jews are abandoned in Europe. 6 million are murdered. No one's bombing the gas chambers in Auschwitz. 1945, the war ends. And when the war ends, there's a huge hope with the Jews, displaced people, over 1 million Jews displaced in Europe, to finally come and to establish their homeland. I want to share with you now the prophecies from Deuteronomy about these very events. Because if I would ask you guys, what are the 3 most significant events in the Jewish history in the 20th century, what would you tell me?
The Holocaust.
The Holocaust, of course. The birth of the State of Israel, correct?
67.
And 67, the unification of Jerusalem. I want to complete my idea, and I'm happy you recorded this because you can follow this later, guys. The idea I learned from my father, I found it a profound idea of the prophecies in Deuteronomy. Because this idea, in every single verse in the Old Testament, the 5 books of Moses, is equivalent to a year from the creation of the world. That's our Jewish calendar. Today is 5,777. Sorry, 5776. That's our Jewish year. So every verse is a year. Very easy to calculate, right? First verse, first year, and so on and so forth. By that method, you're able to find which verse is equivalent to which year, right? And by the way, I'll give you a small tip. Count from the end, not from the beginning, because we're almost 80 years till the end. So you go to the last chapters of Deuteronomy, count back 100 verses, and you're already right. I'm not going to let you count it down. You have to take my word for it now, and then you can check it in your Bibles. Guys, the verse which is equivalent to the year 1941, 1942, the worst years of the Holocaust, extermination in Treblinka and Sobibor and Belzec, Auschwitz-Birkenau, is the verse of Deuteronomy, chapter 29, verse 26. I'm going to read in Hebrew and translate. God was furious at that land to send all of the curse mentioned in this book, the worst possible curse. God abandoned them with furious anger and threw them to a foreign land. Holocaust happened in a foreign land. Verse 28. The unknown only to God, and the known to us and to our children. When believers ask you, where was God in the Holocaust? Guys, we don't have answers to that. This is a secret thing belongs unto the Lord our God. We don't know where was God in the Holocaust. This is part of the big plan. And I want to take you now to the positive thing, guys. What happens 5 years later? If you were standing on the shores of the land of Israel in 1945-46, you would have seen the most amazing scene in your life. The prophecies being realized of boats coming to Israel, of ships with immigrants sailing to their land. If you read the verses equivalent to 1946, 47. 1946 is this, listen carefully. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2. That's 1946. ושבת אדוני אלוהיך ושמעת בקולו ככל אשר אנוכי מצווה אתכם היום. אתה ובניך בכל אוהבך. You should go back to your God. This is 1946. That was 1945 I just read. Verse 3. ושב אדוני אלוהיך את שבותך וריחמך, ושב וקיבצך מבין כל העמים אשר יפיצך אדוני אלוהיך שמה. Guys, God will gather you from all of the diaspora that has spread you and gather you in 1947. Listen to this carefully. If you're going to be scattered in all four corners of the earth, from there God will gather you and bring you.
Yes.
Guys, 1948, the verse equivalent to 1948 is this. This is crazy. והביאך אדוני אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר ירשו אבותיך וירשת ויטיבך וירבך מאבותיך. God will bring you to the land you inherited from your forefathers. You should inherit it, and you should be better, more prosperous, and more numerous than ever before than your forefathers. That's Deuteronomy 30, verse 5. That's 1948. You go 19 verses further ahead. Of the 67 war. And it says there as follows. This is 1966. Adonai Elohecha hu over lefanecha. God is going in front of you. Yashmid et kol hagoyim ha'ele milfanecha. He's going to destroy all the nations in front of you. Guys, 1967. Listen to this. ועשה אדוני להם כאשר עשה לסיחון ולעוג מלכי האמורי ולארצם אשר השמיד אותם. God will do to them what he did to the Sichon and the Amorites and the Moabites and how he destroyed them. And God will deliver them to you. You should do everything I commanded in this book. And just keep in mind, guys, how history repeats itself 3,500 years later. Do you all remember when Moses came with the Israelites to the Moabites and the Ammonites? God tells him, send messenger to Sichon. We don't want to fight against you. We're going to cross through your nation. We'll pay for our water. What does Sichon says to him? Do not pass through me, I'm going to fight against you. God made his heart stubborn. The Israelites fought against them. They inherited their land. 2.5 tribes settled there. Reuben, Gad, and Menashe. Guys, do you remember what I told you about 1967? Israel sent messengers to King Hussein, telling him, stay out of the game. We don't want to fight against you. Please stay put. God made his heart stubborn for us to be standing here in united Jerusalem. This was Jordan before 67. 48 years ago. This was Jordan. And the exact same scenario repeats itself. Hussein joins the war and he loses everything. The West Bank, Judea and Samaria, Hebron, Bethlehem, and above all, this incredible city of Jerusalem. Holiest city in the world. And guys, you can even see the names. Look at the names. The names of Sichon and Hussein are the same exact letters in different order. The capital of King Hussein of Jordan, Amman, was the capital of the King Sichon, the ancient capital 3,500 years earlier. Look how history repeats itself. We're standing on this very mountain. I want to share with you guys, on June 7th, 1967, right over here, exactly where we're standing, I want to show you a picture. The commander of the Jerusalem Brigade, Mota Gur, was standing. That was the third day of the war. He's standing over here, and he's overlooking the Temple Mount. He's about to direct his troops what to do. And he gives them, I have with me the actual recording of his words on the military radio. Let me first show you the picture. Take a look at this. And I'm going to play to you the actual recording. Take a look at this, guys. This is the commander of the Jerusalem Brigade, Mota Gur. Take a look where he's standing. The Dome of the Rock is exactly behind where we're standing on this very ridge. Okay? And I have with me the military recording. Take a look what it says, what he says here. We are sitting on the ridge that overlooks the old city. And soon we're about to enter it. The old city of Jerusalem. That for generations we've been dreaming about and hoping to come back to. We will be the first ones to enter. The tanks of Eitan will proceed left and enter the Lion's Gate. That's the Lion's Gate over there. Move out to the gate. The victory parade will take place up on the platform of Temple Mount. They start running like lions, entering through, and then you hear these words on the radio. Temple Mount is in our hands, Temple Mount is in our hands. Kol hakavod, way to go. Guys, look at the journey we completed. We start with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Follow the footsteps of King David. Prophet Isaiah, Prophet Jeremiah, Prophet Zechariah, Prophet Ezekiel, all the prophecies which took place in that small little city, the city of David down there. We went to the valley where Deuteronomy was written, nearby where Jesus was baptized. We traveled a journey of 4,000 years of history, from the days of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to the revival of the Jewish people in their land, 2,000 years after we were exiled, after the terrible tragedy and atrocities of Europe. We're standing now on Mount of Olives, and I want to finish with a couple of prophecies, some which were realized and some yet to be realized. And this is going to be our finishing. I read to you from Deuteronomy. Guys, in the book of Joshua, if you're recording this, you can have the references as well. In the book of Joshua 24, verse 13. You're going to give you land which you do not work for. And cities you did not build. In them, vineyards and olive groves which you do not plant. You should inherit it. The book of Isaiah 36:17. I'm going to come and gather you to a country filled with vineyards, olive groves, and blessings. And you should build houses and plant vineyards and sit there and rejoice. The book of Jeremiah, where we were today. Jeremiah 31, verse 4. A day will come which you'll be planting the vineyards of the hills of Samaria.
Come on.
The vineyards we saw today in Judea and Samaria. Guys, the book of Ezekiel, full of prophecies. I'm going to read just two. Ezekiel 11, 17. לכן כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, וקיבצתי אתכם מן העמים, those spoke the Lord God. I'm going to gather you from the nations and from all of the places you were scattered. And I'm going to bring you to the land of Israel. Ezekiel 28. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, וקבצי את בית ישראל מן העמים אשר נפוץ בם ונקדשתי בהם, and they should sit on their soil forever. Guys, the book of Joel, what we saw today, Joel 4:18. והיה ביום ההוא יטפו הערים עסיס והגבעות תלכנה חלב וכל אפיקי יהודה ילכו מים. That day, the hills of Judea will be filled of wine, vineyards flowing down, and the water breaking through the springs of Judea. Guys, the prophecies in the book of Amos, chapter 9. ושבתי את שבות עמי ישראל. I'm going to gather the captivity of my nation Israel. ובנו ערים נשמות. They're going to build abandoned cities. Rabbi Riskin this morning in Efrat. וישבו ונטעו כרמים. They should sit and settle and plant vineyards, what we saw today, and drink the wine and eat the fruit of the land. Amos 9:15. ונטעתים על אדמתם ולא ינטשו עוד מעל אדמתם אשר נתתי להם אמר אדוני אלוהיך. And I should plant them on their land, and they should never be abandoned from their land, thus spoke Lord God. Last one from Zechariah. Not last one, because then there's a prophecy that is still to be realized. Zechariah chapter 8, verse 4. For those of you that are going to be with us in Jerusalem tomorrow, I'll read it again. Near the playground in the old city. כה אמר אדוני צבאות. Thus spoke the Lord. A day will come that all people will be sitting in the street of Jerusalem holding their walking canes. And the street of Jerusalem will be filled with boys and girls playing in the streets. I want to finish with a prophecy that has to do with this very mountain. In Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4. I'm going to read it in Hebrew and I'm going to let someone of you read it in English. That's going to be our last prophecy. ועמדו רגליו ביום ההוא על הר הזיתים, אשר על פני ירושלים מקדם, ונבקע הר הזיתים מחציו מזרחה וימה, גיא גדולה מאוד, ממש חצי על צפונה וחציו נגבה. Who wants to read the verse in English? We're reading from Zechariah 14:4, talking about this very mountain in the days where this mountain will be split into two. Go ahead.
And it says, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleft in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, so that there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azel. Yea, ye shall flee like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah the king of Judah, and the Lord my God shall come, and all the holy ones with thee.
So this prophecy is yet to come. When people ask me about the real estate over here, trying to get this land, the only risk here is that prophecy in Zechariah 14. And when that will happen, we'll be in a good terms. So guys, this is again a capture of the journey